What people don't understand is many times midterm rental, the goal is to make 2x what long-term rentals would make you, right? But you got to take into consideration the build out, the furnishing, right? And the utilities, because now you're going from being a landlord to being more of a host. You're not actually, there's more overhead when you're doing midterm rentals.
Yeah, the OpEx is higher.
100%.
What do you account to? I've heard numbers as high as 60 to 65%. I think generally people fall in anywhere from 50 to 60%. And I've heard numbers as low as 40%. And then there's people that can get it down if they self-manage and they really have it down to a science.
Scaled it, yeah. Because now you have everything in-house. You get the VA teams in-house and kind of scale it from there. Yeah, so
but I think the MTR play versus STR, because you don't have as much turnover, because you don't have to get it cleaned as much, because you have less touch points, you could potentially have a lower OpEx, right?
Yeah, and it almost serves like a long-term too, right? Like there's some people who will stay for 6 months at a time. That's almost like a long-term rental, right? In some cases, you can actually create a lease agreement with them and get a deposit just like you would for a long-term rental.
Interesting.
There's just a different terms.
Now,
right?
do you have a concern on the downside when you're looking at risk, Steph, that there's going to be a big movement from the STR space into the MTR space, and then competition will kind of explode? Because the STR space is getting hit. There are some big companies, some big outfits that went really heavy in that space,
right?
And they're getting hit hard for a bunch of different reasons, because of supply and demand, because they were thinking that the COVID thing was going to happen forever, Phenom, which stopped. In addition to that, cities are outlawing it.
Right.
So less, like, in Hawaii, I have one on Maui, and even on Kona, I have a property, and you cannot, there's a sliver of space on those islands now where you can do STRs. In San Diego, now it's by lottery, right? Now there's still space, but
Santa Ana just banned it.
Yeah,
right.
There are places where you can't do it. So, yeah, I guess my question is, are you concerned that more will move to MTRs and essentially that market could get flooded?
Yes and no, because going back to thinking abundant, I think there will be enough opportunity for everyone. But two, I saw a stat or someone, Jesse, who does midterm rentals, was talking about how there's, I don't know how many million digital nomads. And so if you take that into consideration, a lot of people don't really have to work, even me, right? I don't have to be here physically, which is why I was able to move to Miami.
I didn't even know you lived in Miami.
Yeah, most people don't know, right? Like that I'm out there. And so
we'll cut that.
Yeah, please cut that. Don't nobody need to know I'm out there. We are living bi-coastal.
Bi-coastal living.
Cut. But yeah, I mean, I'm out there, so most people don't have to work from wherever they're, it's not local anymore. People have the flexibility to work.
I work from home a lot, personally.
So if you work from home, although we're not in COVID times, what COVID really showed people was that you don't actually have to be somewhere, and commute.
I actually think so my last business, I had a lot of employees. My door would always get knocked on all day long.
Yeah.
Non-stop, all day. Mm-hmm. And sometimes people just want to see the boss and hang out, and I get all that. I have way less employees now, but still, it's like there's a different camaraderie in the office, which I think is needed.
Right.
But when I'm at home, I mean, I can just crush.
I mean, I got so much work done on my train right here. Jonathan was like, why are you taking the train? I'm like, why would I drive for 2 hours and then another 2 back? And then I've got so much work done on my 2 hours here and then in my 2 hours back. Going back to being intentional with your
time. I love it.
And no distractions. I don't have Alex, right? Because usually when I'm at home, I'm working from home. I'm homeschooling too. So I'm time blocking every single 2 to 4 hours.
I will not tell you how much work I get done when I'm driving. Okay. We're going to keep that off
yes,
line.
Please. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
I can't do all that.
We talked about MTRs. If you guys are interested in hearing more about MTRs, Stephanie's property management company is available. She would love to chat with you. She is bi-coastal and she knows these markets. She knows ADUs. Let's talk about 1031. So 1031 exchanges are obviously, big business. There's companies that specialize in 1031 exchanges. Tell me, what they mean to you, how you use them to benefit your clients.
Flexibility, once again, I think a lot of people don't understand how to implement the strategy. Many times, like this year, I've done the most amount of 1031s that I have in previous years. And that's because I've really figured out how to educate clients on different ways that they can leverage the 1031 play, right? Because they don't understand that you could sell off one asset to buy another asset of equal or greater value with ADU potential. So maybe the property that you currently own right now isn't cash flowing and it isn't feasible to do 2 or 3 ADUs or 4 or really maximize highest and best use. But what we could do is do a 1031 to something that does have massive ADU potential, right? And will perform a lot better. So that's one
Interesting.
play.
So, but you have to buy something that has a higher value. So if I'm exiting $1 million
Equal
property
or greater.
yeah,
right?
so yeah, right.
it's not
So
gonna
equal or
be-
greater. So if I buy something that's $1 million, you're saying I'm looking for something maybe that's 1.1 or 1.2. I'm just throwing out numbers.
Right.
But I could also add value by building an ADU.
Right.
And you're saying that when someone is looking for a new property to acquire, you're helping them cross the bridge of, hey, you're just going to move this money and also develop and build new density and make the value of this property
And
the
even buying
upside
it at
way
a higher
higher.
cost would still, supersede because the opportunity is greater no matter what.
Interesting.
That's what I've seen, right? I've also done a lot of 1031s out of state. A lot of people don't know that you can do that. So I have done a 1031 to Hawaii, Texas, multiple states, Florida. And a lot of people don't seem to know that you could do a 1031 from here, to out
Yeah,
of
I mean
state.
it's federal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But most people don't know that. So I think it's just bringing a lot of awareness around 1031s is a great play. You can actually, I posted this the other day on my Instagram. You can do a 1031 and gift a portion of that to your kids. You could also rent it out to your kids, right? Just make sure you have everything in writing, have lease agreements. But it's a great way to,
Charge them.
make sure you charge
Pay
them.
back.
Yeah.
ROI for all them sleepless
Seriously.
nights.
You know how it is.
Oh yeah.
You have
3.
3.
Yeah.
Okay. They're so cute. I always see them in
Thank
your
you.
stories. Yeah.
Knuckleheads.
I got 1 and that's good enough for me. So
Yeah. Yeah, 1031s
I
are
will say though,
huge.
some of the challenges right now with such low inventory is finding a identifying your new property within a certain time frame because it is time sensitive when you're doing a 1031 exchange. So
Yeah, it's
you have to
45
be
days,
clear
right?
to identify a property and then 180 to do the full on thing. Yeah.
All right, 1031s. Huge, big business. All the brokers in town. I mean, there's big business in 1031s, and Stephanie is utilizing those and sellers and buyers to bring those 1031s home and help people grow their real estate portfolios by investing in ADUs along the way where possible. Let's talk about something that is right down your alley and your fairway, which is community. There's a lot of coaches out there. You're not a coach, are you?
No.
Okay, but you do, coaches build communities, or they try to. I am not a coach either. We're building a community here.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a broader ADU community, which I think you and I are a part of.
Right.
I am big into community as well. I feel like, the old Cheer song, sometimes you want to go, everybody knows your name.
Mm-hmm.
And also I think there's everyone knows the power, or I would assume that most people listening to this know the power of masterminds, know the power of networking, know the power of, being in a group environment, sharing information, sharing wins, sharing losses, accountability, all that stuff. But I think building one is different. So tell me, kind of what made you just decide that you wanted to do it for yourself, Steph, and then how it's going, and then maybe some pointers for someone else that either wants to join your community or is looking for a community to join or wants to start their own.
That's a loaded one. So when I started the ADU niche in 2017, prior to that, I was just like a buyer's agent. I wasn't really even trying to do a personal brand or build a community. And when I think of personal brand, I think of community, right? Like what you stand for, what you do for others. That is your personal brand. It's people trusting what you do for others, right? So in building the community in 2017, I did my first event that I helped coordinate with this ADU guru who really didn't know anything about ADUs. I didn't know anything about ADUs. I was learning from who I thought was somebody that was actually doing business. Turns out the LLC was fake. He wasn't doing business. And I'm like, damn, my community is doomed. Like, You know, my reputation is gone after coordinating a 300-person ADU meetup, right, at the Renaissance in Long Beach, and then see this guy
How'd that
turn
go?
out.
What happened? Did you like chat GPT it right before the meeting or what?
No, it like this guy is involved in communities. Like I met him at events. I met him at an event. And that's what really like motivated me to create events myself, because then that would help me vet people and how they do business. So I kind of took that personally, and I was like, all right, well, I didn't know shit about ADUs, so shame on me for not vetting the person.
And so you took that as a learning lesson and said, it's on me now to do that work.
To become the expert in that space, right? And yeah, and take it upon myself to learn from that experience. So I picked myself back up and I said, all right, well, I'm going to start doing SoCal meetups. At the time, I was recording my podcast at Cameron's office. Cameron I met on Instagram.
Shout out Cam.
Shout out to Cameron. And Cameron was amazing from day one. I mean, I was
so cool. So
cool.
Laid back, knowledgeable,
very
chill.
humble
I
guy.
like him.
Yeah. So we were messaging on Instagram and he's like, hey, do you want to come to check out some of my projects? And I was like, I'm there. I'll go record content and I'll learn. So he starts teaching me how to do feasibilities, right? Started doing feasibilities for him, then proposals. Then I started recording my podcast at his office every Tuesday. So then I started learning plans, right? How to read plans. Then I started learning just a lot about the actual process of the design and build. And it was because of him. And then we started doing meetups. So from the meetups, that's where the community started growing and started, you know, building from there. And that's been the game changer for me. So now we've consistently been doing meetups all through SoCal. I actually did a couple here in SD.